How's it going, everybody? I know this is later than sooner. I apologize, but let's get down to it. We got Super Bowl 48 between Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. How's it going again? All right, so I don't think it still hasn't sunk in yet. I know it's been a week, or over a week since the Seahawks clinched a berth to play in this game, but it hasn't sunk in yet. And the last time the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl, I don't think for me it didn't really sink in until the day of the game. It's just I woke up and I just thought, whoa, the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl. Like they have a chance to bring home the first major, and unfortunately I have to use the term major because Seattle teams have won since 1979, but it is the Seattle's opportunity to win its first major championship since the Supersonics took down the Washington Bullets in the 1979 NBA Finals, and also it would be I want to say it would be the sixth professional team to win a championship because I'm counting the Storm and the Seattle Sounders in the NASL days. Also, for those of you who do not know, the Seattle Metropolitans became the first team from the United States of America to win the Stanley Cup. That happened in 1917. Hardcore sports fans know that here in Seattle. But anyway, it still hasn't sung in yet, and everyone's partying. I mean, you go through every corner. We got 12-man flags. We got Seahawks T-shirts. We got vendors selling merchandise. People are honking horns. I mean, heck, every day at work I have seen somebody wearing a Seahawks jersey. It is happening in Seattle. It really is, and it's an exciting time to be a Seattle sports fan. I'll tell you what, because it's been a long time. It's been a long time since we have. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat, but it's been a long time since it's been like this, and it's great. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. So everyone's getting excited for the game. You know, I got my Super Bowl party, ready to go. I got the day after the Super Bowl off, which is nice. Yes. Thank you, KISW, 99.9 KISW, the show in the men's room, for that suggestion. I got that day off. So, just one other thing. In this video, you will not hear any predictions from me. You're looking for predictions, you got the wrong video. I will go over stats. I'll go over what happened with teams throughout the regular season, talk a little bit about their postseason run, and then I'll talk about how I think the game is going to shape up. But you will not hear the outcome, my outcome, because I don't have an outcome. And the reason why is because I have not given a prediction for the Seahawks the entire season, and I'm going to keep it that way and lay it at that. And you guys can probably at that point understand why I'm going with that option. I know it's frustrating, but no predictions. I'll talk about everything else but the outcome of the game. So, all right. So this game. So first off, I just want to give a shout out to some people who viewed my last video. Got Roller Coaster Freak. He wrote talking about the Seahawks winning the NFC Championship game. Coaster writes, I was so relieved when watching that game. My heart rate was way too high last time. So thank you very much for commenting. Got a new channel, and that is WNX Pigpen. Nice to have you back, man. I'm sorry what happened to your channel, by the way, because my favorite, what got me watching your videos was your rant on Greg Knapp a couple years ago. That was hilarious. Anyway, so Pigpen writes, I'm with you, man. So happy we did it after all the work we put in. One more win! Exclamation point. And then my buddy Jude Steves 87. He writes, I always thought Sherman was annoying with his talk. However, he backs it up with his play, and therefore I respect him because he backs up his talk. Harbaugh's reactions throughout the game were priceless. So many laughable moments. Seahawks D versus Peyton Manning and the Broncos' #1 offense should be a great game. Whoever wins, there should be no bitterness or hatred, as Manny is a classy player and probably the most respected in the entire league. If they win, I'll be happy for them, but obviously I will be more excited to see Manning do what he did for me in 2010. Since he's a Saint fan, his last sentence is give a team I like their first championship. Go Hawks. So thank you to everybody who commented. Okay, so this game is going to take place in Jersey. No, okay, all joking aside, it's going to be played in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium, home of the New York Jets and the New York Giants. This is actually the first Super Bowl that is being hosted by two teams and two states. First Super Bowl in history to have that way. All right, so we got the Denver Broncos, the Seahawks opponent. They got off to a pretty darn good start. They won. They won their first 6 games of the season before losing to the Indianapolis Colts 39-33. Kind of a funny story comparison is both the Seahawks and the Broncos' first losses came in Indianapolis this year. So kind of an interesting stat for you. Due to how the AFC West played out this year, took a while because of that loss. Took a while for the Broncos to take control of the division because the Kansas City Chiefs got hot. Regardless of why the Kansas City Chiefs got hot is debatable, but at the end of the day, there was a huge game in Kansas City on December 1st in Kansas City where the Broncos won 35-28, and that kind of solidified that they were going to be the division champs. Nothing against Kansas City Chiefs. I think he had a great year. I don't really care who you beat. You guys won 11 games. You guys earned a playoff spot after being one of the worst teams last year. I still think Coach Andy Reid is a good coach, and props to you guys. And then in the postseason, the Denver Broncos got the #1 seed with a 13-3 record. Their first win was against the San Diego Chargers. The Chargers put up a pretty good fight. They actually almost came back to make a game out of this. The Broncos won 24-17 after, and they survived a San Diego comeback with the final first down play after San Diego recovered an onside kick. In the conference championship game, Peyton Manning for the first time I want to say since that he won the Super Bowl with the Colts. I can't remember what year that was, but I want to say it was the first time he defeated Tom Brady and the Patriots. Since then, the game was in Denver. Patriots lose to the Broncos 26-16. Some stats for you about the Broncos. They rank first overall in passing yards in the NFL with averaging 340.3 yards per game. For rushing, they are 15th in the league with averaging 117.1 yards per game. For the opposition, giving opposition passing yards, they have allowed approximately 254.4 passing yards per game. That is 27th overall, and they have allowed 101.6 rushing yards per game. That is 8th overall in the league. Looking at their how they shaped out, the AFC West was interesting this year as 3 out of 4 teams went to the postseason. Sorry, Deshaun. I know you're a Raiders fan. Denver won the division 13-3. Kansas City 11-5. San Diego 9-7. Oakland Raiders 4-12. So that's a little bit about the Denver Broncos season. For the Seattle Seahawks, things got off to. I'll try to be brief because I obviously know a little bit more about the Seahawks, but the Seahawks got off to the best start in franchise history. The team never had started 4-0. They did after beating Houston in overtime 23-20. That was an amazing comeback in the fourth quarter with a Richard Sherman pick 6 to set up the game-tying score with the Stephen Hauschka extra point. Obviously, they lost to Indianapolis, and then they ended up taking down Tennessee, Arizona. They had a tough Monday night game in St. Louis. They had the biggest comeback in team's history, down 21 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They ended up winning that game in overtime, 27-24. And they were rolling until December. December, when San Francisco beat them at Candlestick, the Seahawks lost that game by a score of 19-17. Things were kind of up and down. The Arizona Cardinals defeated us and gave us the Seahawks their first loss at home in 2 years. And then they wrapped up the #1 seed in the division title in the last week of the season by defeating St. Louis. Going into the playoffs, they, like Denver, clinched the #1 seed. They faced the New Orleans Saints and were able to survive a comeback. And what they're calling in Seattle the tip that was heard around the world, they were able to beat San Francisco 23-17 thanks to the play by Richard Sherman. That's my boy, Richard Sherman. So that is what happened with the Hawks. Some stats for the Seahawks. They averaged 202.3 passing yards a game, which is 26th in the league, but they are 4th in the league in rushing with averaging 136.8 yards per game. They only allow 172 yards per game in rushing, which is first in the league. Excuse me, that's passing. I apologize. So that's first in the league, and then for opposition for the rushing, it's 101.6, which is 7th overall in the league. So that is rushing. How the NFC West panned out this year, this division, like the AFC West, had 3 teams finish over 500. Only 2 teams went to the playoffs. Seattle 13-3, San Francisco 12-4. Arizona almost made the playoffs with their record of 10-6, and then St. Louis. If they beat Seattle, they would have finished 8-8. They finished 7-9. So looking at the matchup for Seattle, Seattle averages 26.1 points per game compared to Denver's 37.9. However, when it comes to allowing points, Seattle wins that category, only allowing about just over 2 touchdowns and 14.4 4 points a game, compared to Denver's 24.9. So that's going to be interesting how you have the #1 offense in the league versus the #1 defense in the league. Not really going to talk home and road records because this game is going to be played at a neutral site. For quarterbacks, obviously we got Peyton Manning for the Broncos. He has a 68.3 completion percentage. He's throwing 55 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, and he is throwing for over 5,000 yards. The Seahawks will go with Russell Wilson and the 2-year veteran. A 63.1 completion percentage. He's throwing for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. So he's got just as many, doesn't have as many touchdowns as Peyton Manning, but he's throwing less interceptions. So Marshawn Lynch leads the Seahawks offense with 12 touchdowns and obviously beast mode. Moreno for Denver has carried the ball 241 times and has rushed over 1,000 yards. He has 10 touchdowns compared to Marshawn Lynch's 12. For receiving leaders, we got Golden Tate for Seattle, or I like to call him Donut Boy. He has caught just under 900 yards this season. He averages 14 yards a run and 5 touchdowns. Doug Baldwin, who I still believe is the most underrated receiver in the NFL. 50 receptions for 778 yards, averaging 15.6 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns as well. For Denver, we got Demaryius Thomas. He's got 14 touchdowns. He has caught the ball for over 1,400 passing yards with 92 receptions. Eric Decker, 11 touchdowns, caught the ball for over 1,200 yards and 87 receptions. We're going to look at the total offense. The total yards average per game is Seattle 339 compared to Denver's 447. So Denver's got that category. Denver's got pretty much every single offensive category except for rushing. So they beat the passing. They beat Seattle's passing, but Seattle's got the rushing. For defense, that's where Seattle is well known. They're dead locked. Both teams are dead locked with averaging opponents 102 yards per game. Seattle allows fewer passing yards and fewer yards allowed. A little bit of history with the two teams. Obviously, these two teams were former AFC West opponents. In their last 5 meetings, Denver leads the series 3-2. The last time they met, it was in Denver, and Denver won in 2010 by a score of 31-14. That was the 7-9 year for the Seattle Seahawks when they defeated the New Orleans Saints in the postseason. All right, so those are your stats. Those are the teams. Recap. Here is how I see how this game is going to play out. All right, so I really do think the weather is going to be a factor in this game. I'm hoping that it's not as big of a factor to make an excuse of the outcome of the game, but I do think it's going to play a role. And I say that because the weather could potentially cause teams to stop passing and go with running the football. So I think it's going to come down to who is going to have the best run attack compared to passing. I know Peyton Manning's going to be known for passing and touchdowns and the audibles and him screaming out Omaha, 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 and I get that. But I really do think if it snows or if there's any precipitation whatsoever, I really do think the running game is going to decide this game. So it's either going to be deciding the game with the run or it's going to be a shootout. That's really how I see this whole thing playing. Another thing that what I'm really interested to see is whether or not how Peyton Manning deals with the Seahawks defense and vice versa. Because Peyton Manning knows the book like the playbook like the back of his hand. So like he'll see the Seahawks defense and then he'll start making audibles and figuring out, okay, there's a hole over here, a hole over here, a hole over here. And that's what I'm really interested to see because the Seahawks have the number one defense and Peyton Manning hasn't really faced this type of defense this entire season. That also being said, Russell Wilson's stats are starting to creep back up again. I know he's been struggling lately, but then again, I think I heard on the radio or somewhere or read somewhere, whether it be Seattle Times or Sports Illustrated or wherever it is, that the Seahawks at worst in their last 5 games or that they played, including postseason, the worst they ever faced was like the 6th ranked defense in the league. So obviously Russell Wilson's stats are going to go down a little bit because he's facing tougher defenses. So hopefully, I believe Denver's defense is ranked 19th. So I think that will be an advantage for the Seahawks. So it should be fun. It really should be fun. Now, I do have one request. Before I close this video. Okay. I want this game to be decided on the field and not because of a what-if factor. Okay? The last time the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl, Seahawks fans, we were angry, we were frustrated, the team was frustrated because of the controversial calls. Now, just hold on. Ever since the Monday night failed Mary last year, I have not complained about the Super Bowl officiating that year. Okay? I haven't. Why? Because I feel that call justifies all the terrible calls that we've had throughout our entire history, which is another conversation for another day. But I want a fair game. I want the refs to make even calls or let them play. I don't want to hear excuses at the end of the game because of whatever reason either team lost or won the game. I want this game to be on the gridiron. Okay? I do not want to leave, regardless if the Seahawks win or lose, I do not want to hear, oh, this team won because of da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This team lost because of this excuse and this excuse. I don't want to hear that. Why? Because Seahawks fans, we've dealt with that. Okay? We've dealt with that for the last 8 years. Last time we went to the Super Bowl, we have highlights just in our heads of the Ben Roethlisberger touchdown, of the weird holding call on Robbie Toback, on the weird below hit by Matt Hasselbeck. And there was, and the offensive pass interference against Darrell Jackson. I understand. Those plays will never, ever go away. And I get that. I completely understand. And believe me, when I watch them, I get mad too. I get incredibly frustrated when I see those plays. So it's because of our experience before. I want a fair game. Okay? If the referees are going to make calls, call them on both sides. If the weather is going to snow throughout the entire game. If it's going to, I don't even want the halftime show to go off, without a hitch. Okay? I don't want to hear things along the lines of, oh, hey, there was another blackout, and this team was able to make adjustments because of it. I don't want to hear that. I don't want any distractions. That's probably the worst thing that could happen if you are a Seahawks fan, regardless if you win it or lose it. I want this game to be determined on the gridiron, okay? Because I don't want this game to be over and then hearing all these excuses from whatever side, whether you're a Seahawks fan or whether you're a Broncos fan. I don't want to hear any excuses of why your team lost. I don't want to deal with it. And another reason why I don't want to deal with it is because Seahawks fans have already dealt with that the first time we went to the Super Bowl, okay? So that is my one request. Other than that, for all you football fans, have a great time on Super Bowl Sunday. I definitely will. And looks like I'll be stressing a little bit on this Super Bowl Sunday because my team is in it. So anyway, talk to y'all later. I'll recap the game as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. Go Hawks.